Welcome back. You're watching France 24. Time now for business, joined in the studio by Matthew from the business desk. And Italy is in the news because they're back in the bond market. That was yesterday.
Yes, they were in the bond markets yesterday. They will be again today. Bond markets can give quite a good sense of how markets feel about a country's finances. And yesterday, the country was looking to raise €6.5 billion. It was selling one-year bonds, and it got those away, but it had to pay a much higher rate, much higher yield on those. It was up to almost 4% yesterday. They'll be back in the markets again today looking to raise more money. And also French President François Hollande is heading to Rome today. He's going to be meeting his Italian counterpart, Prime Minister Mario Monti. Well, to talk more about that meeting, we can go live to Rome and join our correspondent there, Seema Gupta. Thanks for joining us, Seema. It's nice to see you there. And first of all, can you tell us what's going to be on the agenda for François Hollande and Mario Monti today?
Well, it's most likely that the Eurozone debt crisis is going to top the agenda in the talks between the two leaders. Now, both of them are in favour of the idea of stimulus, of boosting growth in the economies, and not just relying on austerity measures in order to deal with the debt crisis. The two leaders are also said to be in favour of Eurobonds in order to cut those borrowing costs. Now, the two leaders are going to be meeting, and it's expected that Mario Monti is looking to seek more allies as the spotlight falls on Italy right now. The fear, of course, that contagion is going to spread to Italy. Now, as far as President Hollande is concerned, the idea is that perhaps, meeting with Monti will help to break that alliance, that Franco-German alliance that we've seen in the past in dealing with the Eurozone debt crisis, and perhaps looking to Monti as some kind of a mediator to bridge the two sides between France and Germany, and perhaps also tapping in onto Monti's experience as an EU commissioner. Now, the two leaders will also be laying the groundwork for another summit scheduled for next week, also here in Rome, not just between Hollande and Monti, but also this time including the German and Spanish leaders.
Now, Seema, following those higher bond yields that we did see yesterday, are there any fears that Italy could go the same way as Spain?
Yes, exactly, Matthew. I mean, that's really the concern, this idea of contagion. And if we look at what happened yesterday, I mean, in those bond sales on those one-year bonds, the borrowing costs spiked to almost 4%. Now, that's a 6-month high. So very significant there in terms of the perception of Italy's credit worthiness. There's this idea that perhaps it's fallen. And we'll have to see what happens in the bond sale later today on those slightly longer-term bonds, those 3-year bonds and other slightly more longer-term bonds. We'll have to see what happens. But the issue now, will Italy go the way of Spain? Now, if you look, there are quite significant differences. Italy is not Spain. It did not suffer that property bubble that Spain did. It has higher private savings. And as Monti said yesterday, the banking system is solid and the economy is not fragile, being based on small and medium enterprises. But of course, the concern of investors, that massive debt that Italy has. So we'll have to see what happens in the bond sale later on today.
Seema Gupta reporting there from Rome. Thank you very much for the details on that story. Now, Matthew, we just talked about Spain there. The country got another downgrade again yesterday. Bad news then.
Yes, that's right. It was Moody's this time gave Spain a downgrade by 3 notches, took them to 1 level above junk status. Moody's also downgraded Cyprus on the same day. Cyprus already in junk status. And Cyprus, of course, also said that it needs a bailout for its banks.
That's the Eurozone crisis. You got some news on the very important subject of oil, a big meeting taking place today.
Yes, that's right, Luke. I mean, the oil price was up at $128 a barrel back in March. It's now fallen to below $100 a barrel. What usually happens then is they cut production and let the price rise. Well, OPEC is meeting today. That's about 1/3 of the world's production comes from OPEC countries. But some, notably Saudi Arabia, are arguing that production should be kept where it is. They want the oil price to stay low because that will help the global economy.
And what's the reaction been like on the markets with that?
Yeah, let's take a look at the markets. The markets in the US all closed down yesterday, just under 1%, and over in Asia, trading still going on there, but the market's mostly down. The Kospi is completely flat. Well, now let's catch up on some more of the day's business stories. And France plans to limit the pay of bosses in government-owned companies. Chief executives will have salaries capped at €450,000. The rules will apply to companies where the state has a majority shareholding. France's finance minister said they'll also push for moderation in companies where the government owns less than 50%.
Executives who caused losses at JP Morgan may have to pay back some of their salary. The head of the American investment bank was explaining losses of $2 billion to a Senate committee on Wednesday. Jamie Dimon said the losses were caused by failure to supervise trading activities.
And Google and Amazon are both competing to own a series of new internet domain names. The body responsible for regulating internet names is preparing to open up hundreds of new domains from the current 22. Google made 101 applications for domains including .google and .youtube. Amazon was just behind with 76 requests for names including .kindle.
Now, some good news for Saab, the Swedish company, which first started car production back in 1947. That came to an end last year when it declared bankruptcy. Now the company has been rescued by Asian investors.
The future is electric for Saab. A new company, National Electric Vehicles Sweden, has bought the brand. Set up by firms in Hong Kong and Japan, it will sell globally with the focus on China.
Through the purchase of Saab, we begin a new era in the automobile industry. We become the first global actor focusing on sustainable solutions. We are going to combine Swedish innovation and engineering knowledge with the best Japanese technology. Marketing and sales will be global, but initially we will focus on China. That's where we foresee the biggest market for electric cars.
Saab filed for bankruptcy last December after teetering on the edge for years. New electric Saabs should be rolled out at the end of 2013 or the beginning of 2014. Unions have welcomed the purchase. It means the company's Trollhättan plant will survive despite making a loss for 20 years.
Saab has risen again and will continue manufacturing here in Trollhättan. It's such a pleasure to stand here and bring you this message.
Saab began in 1937 in aviation. That's seen in the aerodynamic shape of some of its best-known models. One venture to resurrect the brand failed last year. It remains to be seen whether Saab under Asian hands can fly again.
Now, in other news, there is disappointment for the Singapore Stock Exchange, Matthew, which was hoping to have two big flotations, but that's not happening.
No, it's not happening, at least not for now. Well, the Singapore Stock Exchange had lined up both Manchester United, the English football club, and also Formula One to float on its stock exchange. Well, they've heard now that Manchester United is going to move its flotation to New York. It's decided to float there.
It's a big move. Why the move, though? Big money move.
Well, the owners of Man United are Americans. They're the Glazer family. That could be one reason. Also, there's speculation that they might be able to, in New York, to create a dual class of share. Now, that's what Facebook did. Basically, what that means is it gives them more control over running the company than perhaps they could get in Singapore. You mentioned Formula One as well. Yes, they were also planning this big flotation. They have decided to postpone that. It's just because the markets are so choppy and mixed at the moment that it's probably safer for them to wait a bit longer. But a big loss for Singapore. We're hoping to have those very well-known big brand names floating on their stock exchange soon.
Matthew Warren, that's all we've got time for. Thank you, though. That is all we've got time for in business. More news and headlines after the break with Claire Pride. Do stay tuned.